Meg Slaymaker, great to see you. How are you doing all the way over there in Alberta, Canada?
Pretty good. The weather's pretty bad today, but I mean, it is Canada, so you never really know what you're going to get.
And of course, we know each other from our YouTube channels, of course, which both deal with leaving cults. Yours specifically deals with your own expulsion from the Jehovah's Witnesses. But you've become very much interested in cults, and you've even started giving talks about the subject, haven't you?
The only one I've done so far is just at the Edmonton Atheist Society. So they asked if they could have a speaker there about Jehovah's Witnesses, and so I was able to talk a little bit about them and the dangers. I think I did 5 horrible things about the Jehovah's Witnesses, something like that. And yeah, it actually came out pretty good. I was a bit nervous, but you know, I know the topic really well because I grew up in it. So just started to talk and it worked out really good.
Now, we met this time last year when you came to England to attend the protest outside the Jehovah's Witness convention at the Excel Centre in London. And that was a pretty unforgettable experience, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was surprising how many Jehovah's Witnesses actually came up to talk to us and stuff too, because I wasn't really expecting that.
Yeah. I mean, I was there as well, and I guess the whole idea was just to have this peaceful protest. We would put behind a barrier and hold up our signs, and if any of the Jehovah's Witnesses coming in or out or going out for lunch were going to have a look at it, that would be great. But we didn't even expect that, and yet they came over, even spoke to a lot of you.
Yeah, it was really cool. I wish I had got some of the interactions on camera because I was recording a lot throughout the day, but of course, I was never prepared when it happened.
But there would be another one this year, and who knows, we might meet together there again.
Yeah, it definitely was a good time, great experience for sure. And the first time I left the country, so that alone made it really awesome.
Meg, I thought it might be interesting to talk about what it would be like theoretically to join the Jehovah's Witnesses. What would happen if, say, I were to express an interest in coming to JW meetings or attending one of their Bible studies? What would be the sequence of events that may happen that would ultimately make me into a genuine rank and file Jehovah's Witness? So are you ready for this?
Okay.
Right. So first of all, let's just say that I'd been speaking to JWs in the street at one of their magazine carts, and then I was given an invitation to attend one of their meetings in their church, known, of course, as a Kingdom Hall. So what would happen in those initial weeks?
If you were given an invitation to attend their Kingdom Hall, you'd probably be given an invitation to attend on a Sunday because that's the meeting that they hold for the public. Technically, it's called the public talk. And then the Watchtower study follows. So yeah, you probably go on a Sunday, and at the talk might not be too crazy for you to hear, because they do try to make the talks a little bit more friendly for the public. So they might leave out some of the more crazy aspects of being involved in that religion, or cult, I should say. So. And then the Watchtower study, well, it might get a little bit more weird for you if you're not wanting to understand it. So, but let's just say that you went and you were, interested in learning about it. So you were listening with open mind. So if you went to the first Sunday meeting, you'd probably be greeted by a lot of people right away because there's a new person. So they want to, love bomb you. They'll walk up to you, be super friendly and try to be friends.
Oh yes, that's very culty, isn't it? The love
bombing. Yeah, and it's over the top because if you were just another, member, obviously when you go into the Kingdom Hall, you're supposed to be, friendly with everybody, and everyone's, putting on a nice fake smile, even if just beforehand they were rushing and stressed and running late and yelling at their spouse. But as soon as they get there, all that goes aside and they're like supposed to be on their best behavior. So I mean, even with each other, they're supposed to be on their best behavior, but especially when it comes to newcomers, they think extra hard about how they are perceived. So they're extremely friendly, and it could be off-putting to you if you're prepared for it, but if you're not really thinking about it, it might seem like, oh wow, these are really, really nice people.
So you're saying that they prepare themselves for a new person coming. They know somebody new is coming and they behave accordingly.
Not everyone might be aware there's a new person coming, but it's kind of a thing within Jehovah's Witness culture that you're always supposed to be on your best behavior in front of, worldly people, so that they have a good, outlook on, Jehovah's organization, right? So even when you're at work, you present yourself a certain way that might be completely unlike who you are. You're just trying to behave perfectly for onlookers, right? And so when they see somebody who's, comes into the Kingdom Hall that they don't know, if you're not dressed, in a dress suit and tie and clean shaven, and if you don't look like a witness, they will right away jump on the, oh, I've got to really behave good and show how great of an organization this is. It's just kind of something that we all were programmed to do.
I think the Mormons do the same. I think it's the same with the Mormons and probably some other groups as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, once you go to that first meeting, you'll be really love bombed. And then how it would progress, they'd probably want to get a study started, because that is how they actually convert you. They want you to study one of their publications. So the publication right now, as far as I know, if it hasn't changed since I've been in, is What Does the Bible Really Teach? So that's the one that they'd probably try to get you to study with them. And of course, that one is just propaganda. I mean, basically, they make you think that their understanding of the Bible is actually what the Bible's trying to portray. So they basically will, each chapter contains one of their core beliefs, and then they just highlight little bits of scriptures here and there, and certain parts of it that they can use to twist into saying that this is what the Bible teaches. So they'll start a Bible study with you from that book. It would be the fall. If you attended the meeting, they would think, oh, he must be, really interested in learning, and they'll start a Bible study with you.
Sounds almost like the idea they want to get across is that nobody else gets this holy book, but we've got it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. They think that their interpretation of the Bible is the correct interpretation and the only one to be taken seriously. So.
And even their Bible is called is it the New World Translation? Is that right?
Yeah, the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures, yeah.
They have changed little bits of it, which I know some Christians are well aware of that they have their own translations, and the people who translated it will never own up to it. Nobody knows who does the translating, but you assume it's the headquarters there, the Watchtower Society. The
people who have translated it are not Bible scholars by any means. They were just they just translated, they just put, God's name, his supposed name, Jehovah, into a lot of different passages to kind of make it look like that, oh yeah, his name was originally in the Bible, but it was taken out. So they put it in more passages than it's actually, than, the Tetragrammaton was ever actually in. They've inserted it into more places than it's supposed to be. So yeah, they're not Bible scholars, and you don't actually really know the people who supposedly, translated this perfect book.
Yeah, they are obsessed with the name Jehovah, aren't they? Like, again, that's something where they're saying, we've got the name right, everyone else is calling God or Jesus by the wrong name.
Yeah, they believe it's Jehovah, which is according to them, the proper English translation of, the Tetragrammaton. But I mean, really, Yahweh is technically the best translation that you could come up with from the Tetragrammaton. But I don't know. I can't even remember anymore of the arguments they used to use. But in the Bible Teach book, there is actually a section that has a case for the name Jehovah. So you'll go to a specific chapter, and then there'll be a footnote saying to turn to the appendix on, this page, and it has like a couple of, pages dedicated to convincing you that God's name is Jehovah and it's supposed to be in the Bible.
Right. Meg, pretty soon I would encounter some of the more cultish and controlling aspects of the group. For instance, who I can date, what family members to avoid, how often I must attend the meetings, etc. Now, I can't imagine that they would take you into a room and give you a list of do's and don'ts. So how are all these rules imposed upon a newcomer?
Well, a lot of them are going to be imposed on you just by observation of what everyone else does. So
Right.
you'll just kind of see that everyone goes to the meetings, every meeting, and it's kind of taken seriously. And at the meetings, you'll be, maybe every second meeting, if not more. I remember hearing it extremely often about how important it is to gather yourselves together. And they use a scripture in Hebrews. Can't remember the verse right now. It's been a long time, but there's a scripture they use in Hebrews that says, "Do not forsake the gathering of yourselves together, and all the more so as you behold the day drawing near." So again, another reference that, Armageddon is coming, so we have to stay close together and gather ourselves together to make sure that we can stay protected, before the great tribulation hits. They have, I don't want to get into all of their beliefs right now because it would take forever to explain that, but yeah, so as far as how many times you have to go to the meetings, you'll see that by observation. Like the person who's studying the Bible with you will encourage you to keep coming. And if you stop coming, all these people that, love bombed you will get a hold of you and be like, "Oh, how are you doing? Are you sick? I didn't see you at the last meeting." And you'll kind of either feel like, you might feel annoyed, but it's kind of like a subtle pressure. And so you'll kind of see that that's what's expected of you pretty quick when it comes to attending meetings. As for, who you're allowed to date, you might not get, into that as quick, because before they start imposing on you their rules for being a witness, they want you to kind of at least show some form of dedication to them. So they're going to want to push you into becoming an unbaptized publisher. So they're not trying to push you towards baptism right away. They want you to understand their beliefs. So you'll have to get through the entire Bible teach book with the person you're studying with. And then once you're going to meetings regularly and you've got through that book, then they'll have a conversation with you like, "So do you think you'd like to maybe show Jehovah how much you appreciate, what you've come to know and all of this?" And then they'll kind of push the whole, maybe you should become an unbaptized publisher to show that you're serious about, because they can't just keep studying with you and not have you progress. If you aren't going to the meetings, or if you're not showing any interest in progression, they'll just drop you. And then all those friends that were love bombing you will just drop you. So they want you to show signs of progression. So they'll push you into becoming an unbaptized publisher, which basically means that when you're an unbaptized publisher, you just have to start counting your time. So then you have to go out and field service. So now you're also recruiting just like they were.
So this is the magazines, isn't it?
Yeah, so now you're going door to door and handing out those magazines and the books and trying to study with people just like someone tried to study with you. So once they get you to that point, now it's just only logical that, you already know that you shouldn't date an unbeliever. So you already are aware of that because of studying in the Bible teach book, and that it's probably best to be with someone who will also, they say, marry only in the Lord, right? So they're going to want you to be interested in only other Jehovah's Witnesses. But for you, you won't even be allowed to date at all until you're baptized, because no female Jehovah's Witness is supposed to date someone who isn't baptized as a Jehovah's Witness.
So
So
I seem to be hearing is that all these things, they seem to happen sort of organically. The more time you spend with them, the more you observe, the more you hang around those people who behave a certain way, it starts to rub off on you and
Yeah.
is
And you kind
expected
of,
of you.
exactly. And you look around at everyone else and they all kind of, obviously for them, it's all normal. But you don't question, you might not question it as much as maybe you would if it was you and another person who were both there learning together. You might both be like, what's with this? But because if it's just you and all of your new peers are all kind of doing this as well and they don't seem to have an issue with it, you might just kind of slowly be accepting more of their teachings, and even the weird things like the controlling aspects. You're just going to have to kind of accept it because everybody else does, so you might not question it much.
Finally, let's just say that I start following all these rules. I go out promoting the Watchtower magazine. I go to the meetings. I see only fellow JWs. What happens if I start to fall away from these restrictions? Are the elders lenient at first, or would I be disciplined, or what would happen?
That will depend on whether or not you got baptized. If you were an unbaptized publisher and you kind of started to stop going out in service and you missed some meetings, you'd probably get all of these newfound friends of you. They'd act really concerned, and they'd all try to get you to come back, right? Be like, oh, it's the time of the end. It's no time for leaving Jehovah and all of this. And the elders might not want to like meet with you to discipline you, but you are technically an unbaptized publisher, so they're going to want to meet with you and try to find out if there's a reason why you've suddenly stopped going, like if it's
Mhm.
something to do with you or maybe a sin you committed. So they might ask to set up a shepherding call, which
A
basically,
shepherding call. No, that
yeah.
doesn't sound culty. Nothing does.
Yeah, so they might, call or text you and try to set up a time to come visit you at your home with some other elders and try to encourage you, which basically consists of guilt tripping you for not attending the meetings frequently and, going out in service and all of this. But it's their way of trying to encourage you. And they might ask you, why, what you're dealing with, what you're going through, why you suddenly stopped attending all the meetings, la la la. But if you were like baptized and this started to happen, they could potentially go through the same things, but they're going to want to try to find out what you did, because witnesses have this idea that if you're suddenly not attending meetings, there's only a few reasons why that could happen in their mind. It can't be because you don't believe it. It has to be because you were either stumbled by a fellow believer, so something you saw a fellow believer did, offended you, and so you're upset and not going anymore, or you're committing some sort of sin and you're just not being honest about it. So
Mm.
your relationship with Jehovah is deteriorating, and therefore you're not going to meetings anymore, right? So they don't believe that you would leave because you just don't believe it, or that sounds far-fetched. There has to be some other things. Like if you're baptized, you've got that far to where you've dedicated yourself to the organization. In their mind, it's incomprehensible that you just couldn't believe this because it's so obvious and it has to be the truth. So they want to find out why. And if you even give a whiff, to them that the reason you're not going is maybe because you don't believe it, or maybe that you've seen some information online about certain things within the organization that you don't agree with. If you even give a hint that that's any of the reasons, then they will want to meet with you for a judicial committee, which is 3 elders. You're in the Kingdom Hall, in the back room, door closed. You don't have any witnesses on your end, but they want to know what you don't believe. And then they don't want to know details. They don't want to hear your arguments. As soon as they hear you say something that's contrary to their beliefs, then that's it. You're an apostate, and they're going to try to kick you out. And they don't want to hear your reasoning or why you came up with this. They are just going to kick you out.
So it just seems so harsh, really, and uncaring, isn't it? And
Oh, it
controlling.
is. It is. And it's sad, especially like the example that you gave me where you're just one person wanting to learn about this. if you're just like one person and you happen to get swept along into this kind of when you were in a vulnerable state, and then then for whatever reason you leave, maybe because you realize how ridiculous it is, realize you've been caught up into a cult, and then you try to leave, all these people that you've made your world, because you would have had to make them your world, are just going to suddenly drop you.
Meg, I think that's really great. And I think perhaps the best thing to do is to come back with a part 2 on this subject, perhaps about how a disciplinary or disfellowshipping, as you call it, would go for someone unfortunate enough to have that happen to them. So what do you say?
Sounds good.
Okay, Meg Slaymaker, thank you so much. I will put links to your YouTube channel and social media in the description below, and hopefully we can meet up again very soon.
Thanks.